In today's episode, we're going over should you do a physical therapy residency and what I did instead. Let's get rolling. So, here's the problem you finish up with physical therapy school and you're not sure quite yet if you're ready for clinical practice, right? Maybe you're not the specialist that you desire to be. You want to set yourself above your peers. You want to be that expert clinician, right? You've always dreamed of. Maybe you want a little extra mentoring and you feel like you missed that throughout your clinical experience as a student. And then the residency seems like it's the logical next step. So, what should you do? Do we do a residency? Let's figure it out. So, in this video, we're going to cover is a physical therapy residency the right choice for me? And when we're thinking about this, you're going to ask yourself a series of questions. So, first and foremost, what are your long term goals? Do you want to be an expert clinician? Are you looking to fast track your career? Are you trying to stand above your peers? Are you looking for better outcomes or client satisfaction? What I think often means is that you want the respect of the community that you're dealing with. So that's going to be your patients, right? The community of the patients of your specific niche you're trying to break into. And also you're looking for the respect and admiration of your coworkers and the greater physical therapy community. So going down the line of long-term goals, we want to think about which population do I want to work with? Is that weightlifting, gymnastics, baseball, whatever it is? Is networking very important to me? So maybe speaking, public speaking, nationally, internationally. Are you looking for a specific type of job opportunity that residency might help you with? Are you looking to get into more publishing, right? Is there some sort of researcher that you're trying to get a little bit closer with that you'd like to do some research with? Okay. Lastly, we're thinking about our setting. What's the ideal setting you want to work in? The other piece we're going to talk a lot about is how feasible or reasonable is it for you to actually do a physical therapy residency, right? So we'll talk a little about the costs. Obviously, it's not cheap. We'll talk about trying to move to a new geographic location, whether or not that's feasible or reasonable for you. And lastly, are you ready for the level of commitment that a residency is, right? The other really important to ask yourself before trying a physical therapy residency is, are there better options out there? Okay. So if you're looking to get in with a specific population, okay, let's say that's baseball. There may be a residency that does a ton of baseball. They work with collegiate baseball players, maybe it's professional baseball players, and that could be the absolute best population for you. All right. For someone like me, I like weightlifting gyms, right? I like running clubs. I like fitness. There aren't a lot of residencies out there that offer that specific population. All right. We have to think about the continuing education or the curriculum that you're going to receive once you start your residency. Basically, is a residency going to meet your educational needs? All right. Now, if you want to be an expert in, let's say, baseball, and the population that you're going to be working with, your residency is all baseball, and the curriculum is all based around baseball, that's perfect. Okay. But if you're looking for weight room training experience, right, and you're going into a baseball residency, you probably won't end up getting that. Okay. So that's very important. The last thing is location. So oftentimes you're going to be forced to move to get into a specific residency. That might not be something you're able to do. Maybe you own a house, you can't afford to pay a mortgage, as well as, let's say, an apartment somewhere else inside of a city like Boston where it's expensive, right? Might not be reasonable because you might have to leave your family temporarily and you can't do that. So there's a lot of things to think about here. The other concern is whether or not you can even get into a program, because it's challenging to get into some of these programs. You have to apply and then get accepted. There's usually very limited spots. So just a couple spots per cohort per year, right? Are you able to devote as much time as what's needed for the residency? Oftentimes that's 60 plus hours per week. Now, that's definitely not a bad thing, but if you've got a life, if you have like circumstances, you're taking care of someone, might not be something that you want to do. And that's the other piece. Do you really want to devote this much time and energy towards it? And if so, great. But if not, I mean, that's gonna weigh on your decision-making process. The last thing to think about is that, are there cheaper options that are going to meet my educational needs? And obviously residencies are very, very comprehensive, but you might actually be able to get something that's a bit more specific to your own personal needs. It might fit your needs a bit better. That's quite a bit cheaper. All right. And then lastly, this is going to be the next part of this series. I'm going to talk about what I did instead. Because spoiler alert, I really wanted to a residency. I wasn't able to. And this was mostly about geographic location is the reason why I didn't do it. Okay. But I basically made my own residency. I'll teach you how you can do that yourself if you really want to. So welcome to the Fitness Pain-Free Show, where we help coaches and physical therapists like yourself get your patients out of pain and back to training in the gym where they belong. My name is Dan Pope. I'm a physical therapist. I'm a coach. I'm a personal trainer and a meathead. I love all things weightlifting and fitness related. I have my dream job as a physical therapist, coach, business owner, and educator. I've been doing this for several decades now. My goal is to help you reach your goals and hopefully get to a similar place as me, where you're happy every day, working with the folks you like, and just enjoying things in general, right? So, number one thing to tackle before you decide whether or not a physical therapy residency is right for you is, what are your long term goals? And I absolutely love this saying here. So, without goals and plans to reach them, you're like a ship that has set sail with no destination. Okay. That's from Fitzhugh Dodson. So the idea is that you need to know what your goals are before you start working towards them. All right. If you start making random decisions like, hey, I think a physical therapy residency is right for me, then the physical therapy residency is going to take you in one direction. If at one point you decide, this is not necessarily in line with my goals, you're already halfway there. And what are you going to do at this point? Quit. So, first step, figure out your long term goals and see if that residency is going to resonate with those goals and take you closer to them, right? So you're going to have to sit down and think about this a little bit. I'll kind of help you talk through this process, and I'll kind of show you what my goals were at the start and the reasons why I made the decisions that I did. All right. So, first and foremost, one of my biggest goals with a residency was to try to become an expert clinician. Okay. I felt very strongly that I wanted to be very, very, very good as a physical therapist, basically the best, right? That's really what I wanted early on. I wanted to stand above my peers. I wanted the best possible outcomes for my patients. I wanted the best treatments for my patients. I wanted to make sure that I had the respect and admiration of not only my patients, but the greater physical therapy community and the communities I was involved with. So that's CrossFit, that's fitness, that's powerlifting, Olympic weightlifting. I would love to be loved and admired by those folks. All right. And I think that's oftentimes a reason why we want to be better clinicians, is because we're trying to be valued by these individuals. Okay. My question for you is that, will this residency make you become an expert, right? Is it going to set you above your peers, right? And apply the best practices? And generally speaking, I think yes. You just learn so much more than the average clinician coming out of school. So I would say a big yes from this standpoint. The one caveat I will say is that you want to make sure that you're becoming an expert in the population and niche that you actually want to work with. So, first and foremost, I think you probably need to figure out what kind of population you want to become an expert working with. All right. So, for me, I'm really, really into strength and fitness. So, what the heck does that even mean? Because there's a lot of facets of strength and fitness, right? And I started off in strongman first, as well as CrossFit. And these are my two major niches that I really tried to build within. Okay. Over the course of time, I started to see more powerlifting and Olympic weightlifting, and I absolutely love working with those folks. And lastly, I have an interest in endurance sports, so triathlon, running, swimming, biking, and I also has a personal interest in Brazilian jiu-jitsu and wrestling. So these are kind of my ideal population, ideal patients I like to work with. So if the population that you want to work with is not one that is served within a given residency, you might want to think twice about going down that pathway. However, if you're going to be in a residency that works with the exact population that you'd like to get better working with, then it's going to be a great decision for you. So again, the questions to ask yourself before going on to do a residency would be, are you going to get expert status working with your desired population, right? The other piece is, you actually going to be able to work with that desired population. I know a lot of sports residencies are going to expose you to very specific sports. Let's say that's gymnastics, or that's ballet, or that's baseball. And if your residency is going to push you in the direction that you want and becoming an expert in the population that you want, that's a big plus. Okay. And that would be a big make or break thing for me. So if I was going to do a physical therapy residency and they were going to be specializing in something like baseball, I have nothing against baseball. It's just not what I absolutely love and want to further my knowledge in. And I don't want to spend the money and time to gain this knowledge for a sport that I don't care that much about or feel like I'm going to be working with as much in the future. The next question to ask yourself is, what kind of setting do you want to work with? All right. And for me, what was really important is that I was going to be working around clinicians that were smart as well as innovative, right? I want to make sure I was working with savvy folks, both from a physical therapy perspective, but also a business perspective. So working with entrepreneurs, right? That's a special interest of mine. I really like marketing. I really like business. I wanted to be around folks that were thinking that way. I also really like the idea of being fitness and wellness forward. I like a holistic approach. So, thinking about things like nutrition, lifestyle management, sleep, stress, all those things are very important to me. And I just wanted to be in a facility that recognized that and supported that, right? The last piece to think about is money, right? I know as physical therapists, we tend not to think about this. We get into this profession because we want to help individuals. And ultimately, I think that's the best thing, right? But the other piece is that you have to make money, right? I imagine at some point you're going to want to buy a house, want to have kids, married, you're going to have bills and they need to get paid. And as nice as it would be to make little money and just work with the population you love, that's not always reasonable. Okay. So we need to make sure that we're thinking about getting into some sort of setting that's going to help us to pay our bills, right? And you decide how little or much you need. We'll talk a little bit later about loans and some of the problems you'll face once you graduate, because you might find yourself needing a little bit more money than you think that you will need once you graduate. So the main question to ask yourself here is that, does this physical therapy residency allow you to work eventually in the setting that you want to be in? So if you're working in a physical therapy residency that's preparing you to work with, let's say, basketball athletes or baseball athletes, and you're planning on going into a setting like that, then I would say the physical therapy residency does support that. Okay. For me, not many physical therapy residencies are focusing on things like strength and fitness. I don't think at this point you're going to find many residencies that are going to show you how to perform the Olympic lifts, how to do common gymnastics movements in the gyms, how to progress strength exercises within a powerlifting population. Okay. So for me, most residencies just didn't fill those buckets the way I wanted them to. The other aspect to think about is that, is your physical therapy residency preparing you for specific job opportunities? Okay. Now, some residencies may have faculty that have close connections to major organizations, right? So maybe that's NFL or the NBA. Maybe they're connected to popular physical therapy facilities that you'd like to work with eventually. So going through this residency, obviously it's going to teach you how to be a better clinician, but it's going to open the door to bigger opportunities that you'd like to be a part of. For a lot of PT students that are trying to work in professional sports, I'll actually recommend they go and become an athletic trainer, because that actually helps you when you're trying to work in professional organizations. Now, does going back and getting your ATC make you a way better physical therapist? I'd argue probably not, but you just need that piece of paper so you can get to work within the population that you really want to. And this physical therapy residency might help you do the same thing. For some folks, they want to do more research, they want to publish a bit more, maybe they want to be an author of a book or research journals. If going to a physical therapy residency allows you to work with some folks that are already doing the research that you want to do eventually, then it might be the right choice for you. The other piece that a lot of folks are looking for after graduation is going to be additional mentoring, right? And this mentoring can come from a lot of different sources, right? So generally speaking, we're going to be working with expert clinicians in a residency, but also potentially researchers, which is very nice because some researchers out there are going to have a lot of insight that a typical clinician doesn't have, because they have their nose in the research at all times. They know the newest research is coming out, they're applying it, and you're learning it right from the source, right? So that's really, really helpful. The other thing to think about is that, do you want mentoring from a business perspective? Right? Because if you're looking to eventually open your own business or do some sort of ancillary business like I do, I sell continuing education products. Are you going to be around mentors that are going to allow you to soak up the knowledge that you need so you can grow in that area? So, again, the question to ask yourself here is, does the residency help you to network with the people who move your career forward? If the answer is yes, then great. That's going to be beneficial for you, and that residency might be the way to go. Now, this next one isn't necessarily a long-term goal, but it's far and away one of the biggest reasons why I hear students want to do a residency, and that's for mentoring. So nothing really substitutes for that one-on-one guidance that you get from a seasoned clinician, right? And often in a residency, you're getting that from other physical therapists, seasoned physical therapists, and you're also getting a lot of mentoring coming from different areas. So one major aspect of most residencies is going to be shadowing and learning from orthopedic surgeons, and you get a lot of good information from them. Okay. A lot of very valuable insights that you wouldn't get unless you spent the time with the surgeons. You also might have access to coaches and athletic trainers, which is really cool because you get to be involved in the entire continuum of care, which is something that's very valuable to learn that you might not be able to get otherwise. Working with these mentors, you can talk through case studies, right? So the gray areas within patient care, you can discuss with someone who's a veteran, right? And oftentimes you're co-treating. So essentially, you do half the PT session, your mentor does the other half. You kind of go back and forth and you develop a plan together. And that can be super valuable and really accelerate your career. So you don't have to make all those mistakes and learn from your mistakes. You can talk to your mentor and they can give you good advice so you can avoid all of that and essentially accelerate your career. So the question to ask is, does the residency provide concept mastery via mentoring? Right. And a lot of residencies do. Again, you just need to make sure that the residency is going to make you an expert in the population or niche that you want to learn more about, right? So guys, if you like what you're learning about so far, then I want you to go and check out the Fitness Pain-Free mini course. So I made a mini course. It's absolutely free. That's the next logical step if you want to learn more from me. So in the course, we go over 5 lessons. That first lesson is how traditional schooling has failed us, right? So schooling is phenomenal from a physical therapy perspective, but doesn't really teach you how to work with high-level athletes in the fitness world, right? Doesn't always teach you how to do the lifts appropriately. Doesn't teach you about progressions and regressions of common lifts within the gym. Doesn't teach you how to program normally, how to write rehab programs, or how to write injury prevention programs for these folks. Next thing we go over, 7 reasons why people get hurt in the gym, 4 simple steps to getting your clients out of pain, how to build the career of your dreams and earn the respect of your community. It's all well and good if you know exactly how to work with folks within the gym. But if you can't get these folks through the door on a regular basis, then you're simply not going to be living the dream that you want to, because you can't get the patients through the door that you want to work with. Okay. So I'll show you how to do that. And lastly, we'll talk a little bit about the Fitness Pain-Free certification, right? So I'll leave a link in the show notes. I definitely recommend checking this out. Once you sign up for the Fitness Pain-Free mini course, you will be automatically placed in the waitlist for the Fitness Pain-Free certification. Now, the Fitness Pain-Free certification is the course, the certification that I wish I had as a new grad, that fills in all the gaps in knowledge that you don't get in physical therapy school. So A, you'll gain complete confidence working with injuries in the strength and fitness world. You'll learn optimal technique for both health and performance from myself and some of the best coaches in the world. You'll master programming for rehabilitation and injury prevention. Have fun while earning a whole bunch of physical therapy and physical therapy assistant credits. You have 31.5 of those. You'll also gain NSCA credits as well as CrossFit credits if you need those. This is the equivalent of a university education in working with injuries in the weight room. I really believe that. I've been adding to this thing over the past 5 or 6 years. It's massive, a ton of phenomenal information. And lastly, the biggest goal is just to fill your day with the patients you love working with and building the respect and admiration of the communities you love working with. So I'll leave a link in the show notes. Sign up for the Fitness Pain-Free mini course. The certification is open 4 times per year for 1 week to enroll into. If you're on the wait list by signing up for the Fitness Pain-Free mini course, I'll alert you when that next enrollment period is open and you can get started. Let's get back to the show now. So is a physical therapy residency too expensive? So this is a question I love asking students, right? Because we tend not to think about this too much, right? As a student, you're used to not only making $0, but also losing tens and thousands of dollars every year, right? So as a physical therapy student, you're falling into debt big time. We don't think about this until we graduate, right? And one of the thoughts with the residency is that, oh, well, I'm not used to making any money as a student. So when I become a resident and I'm not making that much money, won't make much difference to me because I'm used to living on $0 and I'm already used to spending very little on a regular basis. And I get it. And I'll be honest, that's a decent mentality to go with when you start your residency, because you're going to have a lot of debt. And if you start spending a lot of money, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. I want you guys to wrap your head around the cost of a residency. I'm going to try to go in depth on what I found, but just keep in mind, every residency is very different. So you're going to have to do your own research on the cost for every individual program. Okay. I put the link in the show notes, but this is the cost for the residency programs at Delaware, as well as at MGH. On average, you're going to be spending somewhere between 25 to 50% of your normal PT salary as a physical therapy resident. Okay. So what do I mean by that? If you're going to be starting as a physical therapist in an outpatient setting, and let's say you get lucky and you start with a salary around $80,000, I would say that the average is somewhere between 70 and 80. I haven't been in the market for a while as a new grad. Okay. It's been a while since I was a new grad, so I'm not sure. But let's say you're going to be offered $80,000. Now, if you do a physical therapy residency, you might start somewhere between $40,000 and $60,000, right? Which may sound awesome compared to $0, which is what you were making as a physical therapy student. But you have to keep in mind you're actually losing $20,000 to $40,000 by doing a residency. So in my mind, the cost of doing a residency is going to be somewhere between $20,000 and $40,000. Now, the amount of money you make as a resident is also going to rely on how many patients you're seeing, how many hours you're spending teaching, right? And also going to vary very greatly based on the program that you get accepted into. So take this all with a grain of salt. Make sure you do your own research, okay? The other thing to keep in mind is that some physical therapy residencies actually charge you for the curriculum that you're receiving. And that can be somewhere between $2,000 and $8,000, right? On top of that, you might have to pay for books as well. So I'm sure that's not going to be cheap. And you also have to think about the cost of living. Okay. So if you have to pick up a move, you're able to, let's say, get out of your lease on your apartment, because you might have to pay off the end of your lease depending on how far into lease you are, right? You might be month to month and you might be lucky. You might have to end that lease early. You might have to move to an expensive area, right? So if you're moving to Boston and you're living in the Midwest, that's a big jump in cost of living right there, okay? Which might not be on your radar until you actually get there. And if you already own a house, chances are you're not going to sell your house really quickly, move somewhere, and then pay for 1 year of housing so you can do your residency and then move back somewhere else and buy a new house. You might have to actually pay your mortgage and then also have to pay rent somewhere else. So I think that becomes quite expensive and something to really think about. Are you able to do something locally, or do you have to move somewhere? So that's a big question mark. But the cost of physical therapy residency is potentially somewhere between $20,000 and $40,000, plus a curriculum that's somewhere between $2,000 and $8,000, right? So you're already looking at somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000 for a physical therapy program for 1 year. So guys, that is it for the lesson today, but that is not it for your learning. So when you graduate as a physical therapist, sometimes you're not in your dream job, and I get it. It takes a lot of effort to work in the population you want and really look forward to the patients that you see every single day. So I made a lesson for you. It's another fitness pain-free show. It's called 5 Steps to Earning the Respect of Your Community and Building the Career of Your Dreams. We'll just dive deep on this subject so you can start working with the population that you love. This way, every single Sunday, you won't have the Sunday scaries because you don't want to go into work Monday morning because you got a whole bunch of patients on your panel that you don't feel like working with. Let me show you how to track the population that you love working with. So every single day you love your life, right? And you love your work. So go ahead and click on this link above and get started on that lesson. So that is it for today's Fitness Pain-Free Show. On the next episode, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this question of whether or not you should do a physical therapy residency and what I did instead. Stay tuned. Lastly, thank you so much for your support. You truly allow me to do what I love for a living. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit that like button. Comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Am I missing anything? Have you done a residency? Do you feel differently than me? I would love to hear your comments on this. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you're listening to the podcast version of this video, please leave me a positive rating and review. It helps me out tremendously. If you want to go that extra step and support me further, please consider subscribing to Fitness Pain-Free Insiders. It's a comprehensive educational resource and toolkit for the fitness and rehab professional. Think Netflix, but for trainers and physical therapists. It's premium content from me. I update this every month. I've been doing it for the past 5 years. It's an absolute ridiculous amount of information. You've got over 100 webinars, ebooks, and complete guides. You have access to a private Facebook group to have all your questions answered by me. You can decide some upcoming podcast topics. I'd love to answer questions that you have. So you get started for $1 for a week trial. After that, it's $12.99 per month, right? Dirt cheap. It is a no-brainer if you want to try to learn more from me. So I'm going to leave a link in the show notes. You can check that out. You can also head to fitnesspainfree.com, click on the programs link, and click on Fitness Pain-Free Insiders online library to get started. All right. You won't be disappointed. And lastly, here are the references. So what I did was I put a link to the University of Delaware residency program as well as MGH's sports residency programs. I think they're both phenomenal residency programs. So if you want to learn a little bit more, I recommend clicking on those and just get acquainted and see what they have to offer, right? So if you want to play around with an interest calculator, see how much money you could have made as opposed to going to physical therapy residency, then go ahead and click on that. Otherwise, thanks a lot, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.